Hello, good evening, and welcome to another special episode of the Wednesday week. Did you like my little countdown? I was dancing along to that. All right. As part of the Owls alumni, you can see the man in the corner join us. It's a man born and raised in Edinburgh, but took up residence in Sheffield, and for a moment looks like he was never going to leave, but in a good way. It's a promotion-winning captain who took Sheffield very much to his own heart. Please welcome one of the Kings of Cardiff and current Ayr United manager. It's Mr. Lee Bullen, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks a lot for joining us, Lee. You all right?
Thank you very much for the invite, guys. Really looking forward to it.
I think it's taken a lot of years of stalking to get you on this show, to be fair, Lee. So you know what I mean, like the Scarlet Pimpernel when you get going. So on this edition of the show, what we do, we tend to go into your career. And then once we get to Sheffield Wednesday, the rest of it just kind of fizzles out a little bit. So, you know what I mean? What we kind of want to do is try and find out, who had the worst smelling socks in the dressing room, that type of thing, you know?
Right. Not very childish at all then, eh?
Oh, no, it's all highbrow. It's all highbrow. So let's get right into it. Again, appreciate your time because I know you're literally a full-time football manager. So I appreciate you coming in and giving us your time. So let's go back to late 70s, early 80s. You're in Edinburgh. You're in the capital. This is going to sound weird, but was it? I'm going to make it sound like the favelas in Brazil, but was football like a way out of getting there? Or I mean, you were in Edinburgh for Christ's sake. It's not like you were in some backwater town in the middle of nowhere, right?
No, it was fine. Football was always a passion as a kid. I think any kid growing up wanted to be a professional footballer. Back in the day, I was brought up a Hearts fan, followed my dad's team in Edinburgh. Mm-hmm. Kenny Dalglish was always my hero. So Liverpool was my English team at the time as a kid growing up. So, but as with everything, every family, one of my brothers decided to be a Hibs fan, the opposite of Hearts, obviously, and the other one decided to be an Aberdeen fan. So, football was in the blood, football was in the family. My dad played at a decent level, had an opportunity to play at Middlesbrough, but went into the forces instead. And my mum got pregnant with me, and that sort of killed his footballing ambitions, and he became my biggest supporter after that.
Well, Blair was just saying that off air. He'd have been a professional footballer if he didn't have kids. You know, it's just par for the course, apparently. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I tell you what. Let me introduce you to the guys. Down underneath yourself, you've got Blair there, and then the bottom right, you've got Simon. Blair, have you got any questions for Lee? You want to get off your chest? Anything burgeoning away?
I mean, all the questions I want to ask is like kind of later on your career, like coaching career, and like, you know, being involved in the big takeover when Shansiri came in. What I will want to say is just you were like the first captain and the first player. Give me as a Sheffield Wednesday supporter a bit of something I can go to school with and go, let's see who we've got on our team now. Because I first started going in 1999 and we got relegated, and then 2 years later we got relegated again. So it was just like awful. I just watched bad football. Out of that team, I mean, it's probably got an obvious answer here. Who do you think would have made it in the current team now, or not in the current team now, the Wembley team? Who do you think would have been perfect for that team?
What? So hold on, which Wembley are you talking about? Are you talking about David Hurst Wembley? Are you talking about John?
Oh yeah, no. So your team. So your team. You were at Cardiff.
So
your Cardiff team. Who do you think could have made it in the Wembley team where Carlos failed against Hull?
So, I think it's a very difficult one because I think that is one of the most talented group of footballers that I've ever worked with, to be honest with you.
Yeah, they're brilliant.
No, genuinely, I think they gave Sheffield Wednesday fans a real bit of excitement. You know, with players with the ability of Forestieri and Bannon and Ross Wallace, Gary Hooper, Big Atty. I know he was a little bit Marmite to some people, but very, very talented big lad. And I think it was just the culture within the changing room was absolutely magnificent. There was such a team spirit about it that season. And we felt unbeatable, especially after beating Brighton. We really were confident going to Wembley against Hull. And so, I don't know, Chris Brunt went on to have a wonderful, wonderful career. Glenn Whelan as well. They're probably the two that would have pushed to trying to get into that team. Glenn would have had to fight with Sam. To be fair, it would have been a heck of a fight, to be honest with you, Glenn Whelan and Sam Hutchison, wouldn't it? And you got Chrissy Brunt. going toe-to-toe with Ross Wallace, which would be a difficult decision for anybody because both of them were so talented. So they'd be the two that would have stood out at that time. And being such young boys, to get the opportunity to play a big part in being successful at Cardiff that time, they certainly had the temperament to be part of that group anyway.
Very much so. Very much so. Now, we were obviously in preparation for tonight. We were looking through your career, and to be fair, Lee, it's fucking mental. Like, I think it's what some people would call the unorthodox approach. I mean, so tell us about where you started, where you went, how these abroad clubs came, and then your return back to the UK. At the back end of your 20s, early 30s, right?
Yep. So, listen, I was a schoolboy signing at Dunfermline Athletic. So I was part of it's called the BP Youth Cup. It was sponsored by BP. The BP Youth Cup, like the FA Youth Cup down in England. So I was part of that cup-winning side at Dunfermline Athletic. I got on in the semi-final when we beat Rangers. I wasn't stripped in the final when we beat Dundee in the final. So I was part of that, but eventually got released at 17-year-old from Dunfermline. Went back and played boys club football for a year, and then it's called junior football up here, but it's non-league football at 18-year-old. Did really, really well. Got a move to Meadowbank Thistle, who are now Livingston, almost a Wimbledon MK Dons type thing. So was at Meadowbank for a year and a half, got released, went to Stenhousemuir part-time, got released, and I thought, I'm never getting a chance again. Scottish football, that's me, sort of such a small shop. And I thought, right, I'm going to head off on my travels, going to go to Australia. My mum, her brother and sister both emigrated to Australia. I knew a guy who was coaching over there. So at 20-year-old, I jumped on a plane to the other side of the planet and picked up a part-time footballing gig over there. Worked in a factory and as a forklift truck driver. Got a job as a removals man. Did really well over there, actually. I was still a striker at the time. Scored 7 goals in 11 games and got an opportunity to sign for a National League team over in Australia. But there was a bit of red tape in relation to the kind of visa I needed to do that. And in the meantime, I suddenly got an offer from a team in Hong Kong. And Hong Kong was still British owned at that time, before the handover in 99. So I didn't need any work permits or visas to go to Hong Kong. So took the opportunity, and at 20, I think it was 22 when I went to Hong Kong. That was the first opportunity I had of being full-time in professional football. It was a brilliant life experience. Great opportunity for me to spend 4, almost 5 years in Southeast Asia, traveling all around, playing in tournaments in Cambodia and Taiwan and various other places, Malaysia, China, all these type of places. And
what factor sun cream were you wearing when you were out there, Lee? I mean, good Lord, man.
You know us Scots, they go that olive brown colour, don't they, when the sun comes out? No, your body adjusted. Listen, it was tough. It was the humidity that was, I don't know if you've ever been to Hong Kong, but the humidity in Hong Kong was really, really tough initially on your body to play football. And I think it was highlighted, obviously. I think the biggest highlight of my time in Hong Kong was to play against the national team of England just before Euro 96 when Gaz ended up in the dentist chair. And prior to that game, we were basically, it was my league team with 2 or 3 additional guest players that joined us. And everybody wrote us off, it's going to be double figures for England. Why are they taking this game? It's a joke game type of thing. But it ended up 1-0 and very, very close. And I had an opportunity myself to score in that game. I was through, but Seaman made a wonderful save. So, it was, humidity was the toughest thing, not necessarily the heat. You got used to it. But for me, the biggest thing out of that, other than getting a move to Greece after playing in that game, the biggest thing out of that was the people I met. I made friends for life on my travels in Australia, in Hong Kong, and then moving on to Greece afterwards to play in the top league over there was, again, I had a few knocks, obviously, getting released a couple of times in Scotland as a youngster. And then going to Australia let me rebuild my career and step back up to professional football in Hong Kong, step back up to another level in Greece, and then came back to Scotland and basically went round the planet and re-signed for Dunfermline again, coming back to Hong Kong, which was bizarre.
What an absolute circle! So, Simon, we're at the millennium now. Did you have any subsequent questions about the 90s before I move it on?
I was only going to say to you, Lee, obviously, when you played the England team prior to Euro 96 and the dentist chair, actually, that became infamous, didn't it? I don't know whether that was before or after they played you guys. But what was the interaction between the England team and yourself? Obviously, were there many Europeans playing for your side against the England side?
So in Hong Kong, you were allowed 5 foreign players in each team. Well, allowed to have 6, but only 5 on the park at one time, and majority of them. So I played in my own team. We had a lad called Carlton Fairweather, who was part of the crazy gang at Wimbledon. We had Mike Duxbury, who was an England and Man United international fullback. We had a big Dutch centre back and a Yugoslavian centre forward that we worked with. Sorry, and another English lad, God rest his soul, used to play for Sheffield Wednesday, a goalkeeper in Ian Hesford. He was our goalkeeper against England, and unfortunately passed away pretty young, to be honest with you. But that was a foreign type of thing. But so the dentist chair incident was Gazza's birthday on the day of the game. We played the game, and then they asked us where's the best place to go for a night out. There was this bar. It was sort of based around a TGI Friday type style, American diner bar club. So that was always packed with expats. So we told the English boys to go there. It was a local of mine, so we were in the club at the exact same time as the boys were there. The English boys, obviously the pictures are in the newspapers. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't look great, the pictures, but they were not as bad as it was made out to be. I've got to be honest with you. They certainly had a good night, fully led on by Gaza, enjoying his birthday. But no, they were really good with us, even after the game in the bar. They were chatting to us, spoke to quite a few, spoke to Alan Shearer and Tim Flowers after the game. Obviously, Gaza was in, Terry Sheringham was in. The naughtiest little one was who's a wee guy that played with Chelsea, who was always a pain in the backside.
Dennis Wise.
That's the man, Dennis Wise. He was the naughtiest one in there, I would say.
I love the idea that when Paul Gascoigne scored against Scotland, all of your countrymen were going, for fuck's sake! And you're sat there going, I was there when he did that. To be fair, bittersweet moment for you, Lee.
I was actually at Wembley for that game as well, to be honest with you. So that was about 2 weeks after I went to the game. So see, when we got the penalty to potentially equalise, and then Seaman saves it, and then 5 minutes later, Gaza goes up the park and scores that wonder goal and decides to do that. I'm like, oh. And I was there with 3 lads from Hong Kong, to be honest with you. And we all looked at each other as if to say, yeah, we know exactly where that is, what that's about. So,
amazing.
If you're going to lose a game of football to a goal like that, then you can't complain too much.
Nah.
Yeah, because we're quite pragmatic about losing to Argentina in '86. You know what I mean? So yeah. I get what you mean. I get what you mean. So as we've moved on now, and we're at the turn of the millennium. I mean, and as the late '90s are hitting, were you ever sat thinking to yourself, "I can play at a higher level here"? And did you know that was going to come about?
So no, I think definitely heading off on my trip to Australia and regaining a bit of confidence in myself, then getting the opportunity to Hong Kong and then going to Greece, then I suddenly realised, you know what, I'm not as bad as I thought I was, to be honest with you. I think I could do something here. And I proved something to myself when I went back to Dunfermline. Okay, when I joined Dunfermline, we were in the Championship at the time, but we got promoted to the Premier League in Scotland. So I had gone from somebody that had been released from a League One, League Two side in Scotland to suddenly playing a big part in taking a team to the Premier League and signing a Premier League contract. I never thought I'd ever be able to do that. And the experience of that and going to Rangers and Celtic at the time with some of the players they had, like Sutton and Hartson and Larsson at Celtic, and then you've got the De Boer brothers and Mikel Arteta and Tugai and all these type of guys playing at Glasgow Rangers. You know, that was unbelievable. I was freaked to being on the same pitch as the English lads, obviously at the time, but going up against these guys, these were big world class players at the time, and it was great to be lining up in the same sort of pitch. These guys.
Had you already made your transition from striker to defender by this point then? So you've gone to...
No, I had a season at striker at Dunfermline, and then they signed 2 lads that were way better than me, so I slowly but surely started to step backwards. I started at right midfield, then ended up at right back, and then signed with Wednesday as a right back initially with Chris Durnard, and then slotted into centre back when there was a couple of injuries. I think Spike, Graham Lee got injured. Big guy Branston took a knock, which, to be fair, it'd have to be a heck of a knock to do anything to put him out again right now. And then, so I moved back into centre back with Big Woody at the time.
Okay, so now Blair, we've got to Sheffield Wednesday. So ask him about how it came about. That, you know what I mean? I know we've done Scotland now, we've done China, we've done Greece. So we can get to your era now, bro. And I know you're excited about it.
How old were you when we went to Cardiff?
So I was just turning 15, so I was still 14.
Good.
So it was just like it's like that age when you really just start falling in love with it properly and start getting addicted.
So you were older than Liam Palmer then?
Yeah. I was actually on holiday in Skegness with my mate, and I can remember like saying to his dad, like, "Come on, we need to get home because I need to watch this match of football." And his dad just didn't care about football, and I'm like, I don't want to swear at someone's dad, but I was like, I've got to get.
Blair, sorry. I know you're reminiscing here. My apologies, Blair. But the ironic thing is, I was working at Butley's Family Entertainment Resort, Skegness, on that day, and I drove there on the day and drove back. We had a spare space in the car and everything, pal. But me kidnapping 15-year-olds to take them to another country is frowned upon.
So he spent, was it 4 years playing with us?
Yeah, I think it was. Yes, it was four seasons. Yeah.
Yeah, and I completely forgot you went back to Falkirk, and then you came back to who brought you back as a coach?
It was Sean Macaulay that brought me down initially to get involved with the academy. So he invited me back down. The EPPP had opened up a few more jobs within the academy system. So it was Sean Macaulay that gave me the first shout. At the time, the manager, Gary Megson, had just left and Dave Jones had just taken over. So I went back and started part-time after leaving Falkirk, part-time with Sean and the under-18s, knowing that an under-21 team was going to have to be put together for the following season. So Sean got me to dip my toe in the waters working there. Obviously, we came back down the road, and myself and my partner at the time bought a business in the town. And I was working part-time there and working part-time at Wednesday at the same time. So it was all down to Sean Macaulay.
Nice. So it's all his fault.
It's all his fault, indeed.
Okay, so I've written down a note here, and you were part of the wonderful Matt Exton video all Wednesday. And there's a wonderful part where you speak so warmly about Sheffield and playing for Sheffield Wednesday during that video, saying about how it gets into you, about how you become a part of it. I feel that Barry Bannon's going through that now, if I'm honest. I feel like a few years ago he's kind of just assumed Sheffield as his own, that type of thing. I mean, can you describe that? Can you talk about that? I mean, walking out in front of that crowd, was it early doors where you went, well, this is for me?
No, I think early on we had a pre-season when we first arrived in Ibiza.
The infamous Ibiza trip,
which certainly fostered a bit of team spirit, shall I say, during that thing. We beat Preston and we actually got beat on penalties against Watford in the final of that tournament, to be honest with you. No, listen. We were basically a group of waifs and strays that had been thrown together by Chris at Wednesday. And it wasn't until, I don't think, we walked out in that first official home game and you hear Hi-Ho Sheffield Wednesday that you actually realise, wow, this is something that I had never dreamed of playing at a club of this size. I know we were in the third tier of English football at the time, but even I knew the history and the players that had done so well with Sheffield Wednesday in the past and regularly sort of pushing up the Premier League or the First Division back in the day and getting visits to Wembley, semi-finals and finals and things like that. But to walk out and hear that crowd at that time, having just missed out on being relegated to the league below the season before, by all accounts, it just made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. And obviously at that time, Chris Marsden was the captain of the team and playing. I was just this new kid on the block that had just arrived who basically probably nobody knew. But we did have a hell of a team spirit that season. And I know Dave Allen gets a bit of stick from various quarters in relation to the fan base and things like that, but he did have in our contracts, there was a a thing that every single player had to live within a 15-mile radius of Sheffield. Now, if you step out of Sheffield any further than the boundaries and go on a 15-mile radius, then there's no anywhere else you'd want to live other than Sheffield. So, so basically everybody lived in Sheffield. All the players lived in Sheffield. So after training, if you wanted to go for a coffee, you'd always bump into one of the lads with his girlfriend or his wife. Or if we did win on a Saturday and we decided to go out for a couple of drinks on a Saturday night, you'd always bump into 4 or 5 of the lads. So it just built this real sort of family team spirit that season. And I don't think it was necessarily the quality of the squad that's got us there. I think it was the team spirit and the real culture within the changing room that was built that season that got us promoted there. It was just phenomenal, along with the crowd and some of the memories from that day alone there and the semi-finals at Brentford were just things that I'll never, ever forget.
Now, before I just hand over to Simon, I just want to hear one tale from you. Having spoke to a few people from that squad, I mean, you know, obviously you're the one that we want to get on. You were the captain, and don't tell anybody, but you know what I mean. But that trip to Ibiza, tell us about Macca missing the coach.
So it wasn't Stevie McClain.
Oh, was it not?
No, it was Lewis McMahon.
Yes.
Right. So Macca, yes, still a Macca.
Yeah.
It was Lewis
not
McMahon.
Stevie Mac.
Right. So we were training at 10 o'clock in the morning. Now we had just beat Preston in the first game and played really, really well. So Chris allowed the players to have a couple of drinks in the bar in the hotel. I think about 3 of us had a bit of drink in the hotel. I don't know where the other lads went to. Well, I do know where they went to. I'm not going to divulge that here and there. But fair to say that a lot of them struggled to get out of their beds the following morning to get on the team bus to go to training. So we're sitting on the team bus at 10 o'clock. It was only Lewis that was missing. So we're knocking on his door. Nothing coming out the door. We're trying to get somebody to open the door. He wasn't in his bed, and we just couldn't figure out where he was. And then eventually Chris says, right, listen, we've got to go to training. We've only got this short spell, and we've got this final against Watford in 3 days' time type of thing. So we need to get on with things. And just as we're pulling away, a taxi pulls up. Lewis McMahon comes sprinting out in the same clothes that he's had on from the night before, and jumps on the bus without any kit. Luckily enough, old Pete the kit man had spare kit on the bus for him. So again, I think he just went for a walk and just couldn't find out his way back, to be honest with you.
that must have been it. Yeah.
We've all done it.
Don't know where he ended up, to be honest with you. You'll have to get him on. He's in Australia now. You'll have to ask him for the proper truth.
Yeah, we will. Go on, Simon.
So, Lee, obviously Chris Turner signed you, but then partway through the season, he left and Paul Stewart came in. And obviously you have some idea of Paul Stewart because he's a bit of a hero up in your neck of the woods, well, certainly up in Dundee. What was his first impact when he came in and took over from Chris? How did it change in the changing room, training and so on and so forth?
He certainly wasn't shy in telling you the truth. And I think actually that's probably the reason that our fan base took to him so well. He would call it as he saw it during games. And I know sometimes a lot of managers have got to speak with a little bit of political tongue just to ensure that there's no scapegoating or anything like that, nowadays especially. But Paul would just say as it is. If you had a bad game, he'd say Lee Bullen had a bad game. Let us down with that and this and other. Within the changing room, he knew success for this league with his Plymouth team. He understood what it was to get up the top of this league and get out of this league. And his assistants also, and John Blackley and Kev were excellent as well. They were a good drilled team. Now, Paul Stewart was a bit of a hero of ours, with that Dundee United team that beat Barcelona and things like that, and sock rolled down, scruffy bugger he was. But he was brilliant for me. He was brilliant for me because his honesty. I think there's too much sort of, I don't like using the word backstabbing, but I'm going to use the word backstabbing in football. I would rather get it told to my face if somebody's not liking you or you've had a bad game, or at least you know where you stand. I've seen it too often that people will tell you one thing to your face and say something else behind your back, and that's not how I like to work. And it's probably one of the things that you pick up from managers when you get the opportunity to do the job yourself. he was straight down the middle. His tactics were very black and white. There was no grey areas in any way whatsoever. It was a 4-4-2, and it was a basic kind of pass the ball forward and run forward style of football. And it got the results that we needed and got us over the line. So who needs Mourinho?
Exactly.
Okay, Blair, we've spoken a little bit about that season. Let's get to that final. Let's get to that game. Let's do it.
What, Cardiff?
No, fucking Wembley. What else do you think I mean?
Kids.
What was
Do you
the
want me
feeling?
to talk about it?
What
Going
was
to ask a question? Or you just
Yeah,
I was
what
going to
the-
say.
I
what was the
was. Can I just ask a question prior to we get to Wembley? Lee, you went to Rother Valley on a team bonding,
Yeah.
and I've got the Kings of Cardiff book, and there's photographs of you at Rother Valley getting quite wet, falling in,
It was
etc.
cold. Rother Valley was so cold.
I mean, it's Rother Valley. I mean, sometimes they ban dogs from there because of the algae in there. Whose idea was that?
Sturrock. Paul Sturrock. He needed to just get us out because there is a heck of a break between the final and the final. And some clubs will go away. Some clubs will just stay close by. He wanted to keep it as normal as possible, but he did know that we'd go cold turkey just being into the training ground every day. So he decided to do something different, take us kayaking up to Rother Valley. He scooted around on some sort of speedboat to keep an eye on us, and then they had some guy doing us different fun games and races and just a bit of fun. It was great. I've got to be honest with you, it was great, and it broke the ice a little bit, and it broke the monotony of the build-up. And listen, it wasn't exactly have a few glasses of wine like before the Hull game that we needed to win up there. The second game or last game of the season or whatever it is when he produced that on a Friday, but it was something different that exactly let us clear our minds for the football side of things and just have a bit of a laugh at each other's expense.
What was it like on the pitch when we went 2-1 down? Did you feel we could get back into it, or was it like, because that was God, one of the earliest goals?
I distinctly remember it when we did go 2-1 down, and then I think it was about 20 minutes to go, and he had made subs. I think Paddy had just come on, and Alex Bruce had just gone off. So it was myself, Woody, Paddy, and Hecky were the two fullbacks. And I remember turning to Woody and pulling Hecky over and Paddy and saying, "Listen, what it's I don't know if I can swear, but it's shit or bust here. We have to go for it. So just let me and Woody go man for man against their two strikers, and you two just bomb on, just go forward. Because we're as well losing 3-1 as we are 2-1. It's the same difference. So let's go for it. See if we can get something out of it." Stevie coming on. So Paul made 3 subs at the same time, didn't he, to bring the lads on with, and then obviously Drew come on it as well. And we got a break. We got a break with it. At the time, I thought it was a stone waller. One angle shows it as a stone waller. About 8 angles show it as the softest penalty that's ever been given in a final, I would think. So we got a little bit of a break for that side of things. And fair play to Stevie. I mean, it's on record, the story. I think he was on 19 goals. He needed one more goal for a bit of a goal-scoring bonus to get there. So he's got this penalty. And bizarrely enough, big Timmy Constantopoulos is now my goalkeeping coach up here at Ayr United. So I don't remind him of that final much at all, virtually every day, to be honest with you. But to be fair, it was Stevie's worst penalty ever. And Dimmy says that. He says that's the worst penalty. See if he catches it right, I saved that penalty. So Stevie sclaffed the ball into the back of the net. And at that point, after they'd had the red card, you could physically see everything drain out of them. I know Richie Humphreys really, really well. And he knows that one decision and that one goal was the deciding factor in that game. It was only a matter of time. And when Glenn Whelan went on to score the third, and then obviously the final goal is just that's written in the stars for the young lad to go and for Drew to go and score that goal. And it was just the feeling of relief when that went in was. And you could sense it around the whole, like, 3/4 of the stadium as well. I don't think it was necessarily joy. I think it was relief. To get themselves back up to the championship.
Yeah. Well, if you think about that game at Cardiff, that time when you've walked in and you've got to that pitch and you've looked and you've gone, Jesus Christ, and then when when Humphrey scored, when we went 1-0 down, and it silenced, like you said, 3/4 of the stadium. That must have made you go, shit.
It was eerie, and you start to question, you start to look around, and that's when we had to just sort of pull ourselves together, galvanise, and say, listen, it's not over. And again, take a few gambles here and there. You know what? See, one of my abiding memories of that is one right at the very start, walking out with the little mascot lad and looking round, and I think it had been about a week before, or 5 or 6 days before, Steven Gerrard had captained Liverpool back from being 3-0 down in the Champions League final to win it in Turkey against AC Milan. And I sort of picture myself being like, not Steven Gerrard, but being in that sort of scenario, lifting a trophy for your own club in different scenarios, but it would have meant as much to our supporters as that did for Liverpool fans. For our players as much as it did for Liverpool players. But the first ever World Cup I can think of was the Argentina 78 World Cup, and that final when Mario Kempes scores the goals and they walk out in Argentina in the final, and it's all the ticker tape everywhere. That's what I felt when I walked out, just see blue and white everywhere around the stadium. And it just sort of, for a split second, took me back to that memory, sitting at home watching the World Cup final against Holland, and that final with the blue and white everywhere. And I walked out there holding the hands of this little red-headed lad who I have met since, and he's probably about 3 foot taller than me now. The little kid that walked out with me in the final as a mascot. It was just one of these weird sort of deja vu moments that you think I've seen this picture in my head before. It was amazing. But then to be 8 minutes away for throwing it all out the window was not fun, shall I put it that way.
I can imagine. Now, listen, I'm sorry to take you away for Cardiff for just a second, but we've had a couple of questions via YouTube where this has gone out live, and a guy called James has gone, just joined. Have we covered Lee going in goal away at Millwall and that incredibly dodgy free kick he got when it should have been a Millwall goal? And then while they were all still celebrating, Frankie Semak storming down the pitch to score what ended up being the winner, which just kept us up and sent Millwall down. So tell us about that day.
So amazing. So Paul Stewart decided in his wisdom that he was only going to go with one goalie, take a goalkeeper off the bench and put an extra striker on the bench, just in case, because it was what it was. It was a winner takes all sort of game that day down there. And let's be right, if you had a choice of anywhere in English football to go where you needed to win a game of football, I don't think Millwall would be your choice. So sod's law. David Lucas goes up, grabs the ball, nobody near him, comes down, twists his knee completely, and we're all looking around thinking, oh my God, here we go, what's happening here type of thing. And then it gave the shout of the old typical physio shout over to the bench. So I made the decision to go in goals, and luckily enough, we only had 25 minutes of that half left with the Millwall fans behind me, because there was some choice words there. It's not easy being 33-year-old Scottish and sort of red-haired with the Millwall fans behind you. Some of the chants were enjoyable, shall I say, from that side of things. So luckily enough, it was only 25 minutes that end, and then we had the full 45 minutes at the other end, which had the Wednesday fans behind us. So that free kick initially gets given, edge of the box. The boy bends it towards the top corner, get up, be able to tip it round the post or tip it over the bar, and then typically in swinging corner, they've put about 4 boys just round me completely, so you knew exactly where it was going. Drissa Diallo, Richard Wood, what had been absolutely immense. They headed and kicked absolutely everything, but apart from that corner, it gets swung in under the bar. I've tried to go up to punch it, and I've just been clattered into the ground.
And that's your story, and you're sticking with it, yeah? You got
that
clattered.
is exactly what happened. But listen, it's not finished yet. That's exactly what happened. Clattered to the ground, end up in the back of the net with the ball. So they all run off celebrating. I'm sort of claiming, it's got to be a foul. They've clattered into me, everything like that. And the referee's actually given the foul. I'm like, it must have been them that clattered into me. Having watched it again on video, I think it was Woody and Drissa that were trying to head it, and they clattered me into the back of the net. So if I'm being genuinely honest, the goal should have stood, I would have thought. But I don't know what's more surprising. 1, me keeping a clean sheet at Millwall. 2, a referee giving a non-goal against Millwall at the Den. Or 3, Frankie Simic crossing the halfway line, never mind getting in the box to score a goal. So yeah, there's 3 quiz questions in a row in that one incident. So that was absolutely brilliant, and our fans were absolutely phenomenal for the rest of that game, and we kept the clean sheet, and it's probably one of my proudest moments, I think, in football, being able to keep a clean sheet for 70 minutes or something. I've played with David Lucas a couple of times in some of these sort of charity games, old guys games type of thing, and as well as it was one of my biggest memories, it's probably one of his biggest. He reckons that one knee injury probably cost him his Sheffield Wednesday career, and he's always been gutted about that, to be honest with you. He felt he just left Sheffield Wednesday before his own time.
Well, we did have an audio episode when we did an episode with David Lucas about 3 years ago during the first lockdown, but the audio quality wasn't great, and he was pissed up, and I think he told that story. But I can't.
No chance.
I know it's shocking information, isn't it? But listen, we do have another question on Twitter, and it's from Steve Johnson, and it says, "Ask Lee about away trips with John Hills."
Oh God, is this the same Steve Johnson that played a part in writing my book with Alan Biggs? I think it might be.
I think it could well be, boss. Yes.
Listen, I actually shared a house with John Hills, and at the time I was with my first wife, got married, came down. So no, this wasn't an away trip. This is a different story. So I'm not even going to go into away trips with John. So you can take it from this story how bad away trips were with John Hills, right? So anyway, my wife had come down the road with my kids from Edinburgh for a weekend, and we had gone out for a meal, come home, go to bed. Hillsy had gone out in the lash in Sheffield. So anyway, he comes home with Steve Watson back to the house. So Watto lived over in Manchester, but Hillsy and his primes decided to say, "I'll just come back to the house, you can crash on our couch." Brilliant. My family's there, everything. The 2 of them come in bladdered. So Watto crashes on the couch. Hillsy decides to come up the stairs, open the door, switch the lights on, and dive into bed with me and my good lady. Absolutely steaming drunk, jumping in the middle of us and just telling us how much he loves both of us and kissing us and everything. My missus is like, "Who the Jesus Christ is this geezer coming and jumping in here?" So that was Hillsy in a nutshell, and that was a tame version of some of the stories he's had. The away trips with Hillsy were, not printable, not talkable. Sorry, I can't go there. It would, I could damage Hillsy's for life.
Okay, now Blair had some questions that he wanted to ask about your about going into coaching and going in that way. I mean, so you've gone from Sheffield Wednesday, you've gone to Falkirk, 2 places where I assume there's pictures of Chris Waddle everywhere, and then you've come back. Go on, Blair.
Yeah, which coach did you learn the most under from a personal point of view? Like, who did something you just thought, whoa, and never even thought of that? Like, would it be Carlos?
This is a question that gets asked to virtually every coach, every new coach that comes out, and the answer I always tend to give is that it's not so much what I learned from coaches; it's what I learned that I wouldn't do if I ever became a coach. There are certain things that coaches, and I thought if I ever do become a coach, I would never do that type. I've played under coaches that name the team on the day of the game, and I've always found that tough as a player. If you weren't in the squad or weren't on the starting 11, I would always preferred, as disappointed as you are, to be told that you're on the bench or you're not in the squad on the Friday at least, so you could get over your disappointment before coming in on a Saturday and then getting your game head on and supporting your teammates. There's a couple of coaches I've played under when they've decided that players are surplus to requirement, that they send them to train with the 21s or 23s or something like that. I never felt that was fair. I mean, put your cards on the table, be honest with the player and let them know that, listen, I'm just going to go on a different route and blah, blah, blah. But I would always have players train with me in the first team, unless they let themselves down or unless they become session wreckers or anything like that. I think they deserve that respect first and foremost. And I think you got a little bit of respect back from it as well, although you've told them that their career with you is potentially over. There's a couple of little sort of things that I picked up on from coaches that I wouldn't do. Now, some of the best coaches I've worked under, I had a brilliant coach in Hong Kong who was basically the one that gave me my confidence back, a Chinese lad who's now no longer with us. But Carlos was brilliant. Carlos was absolutely brilliant. Him and his staff were fantastic. One, because they were so inclusive in relation to myself. He had 4 or 5 Portuguese staff, and whenever you come in the morning, they were probably in about 20 minutes before I would get in. They're all speaking away Portuguese. As soon as I walked in the door, Carlos would say, right, no speaking Portuguese, you've got to speak English now. So myself and Andy Rhodes, we always felt part of it. We never felt excluded. And I thought tactically, especially that first year, he was great in some of his ideas. Maybe the second year he changed slightly. I don't know. Maybe went a little bit more pragmatic, but we actually had a better record and finished higher up the league going that way. And don't get me wrong, I thought out of the two opportunities in the playoffs, I thought the second opportunity was probably our best one against Huddersfield.
Oh, 100%.
Got promoted without scoring a goal. Go on, Simon.
No, I know. Don't even go there. I know. So frustrating. And the goal they got that fluked them into the final, and it was just so hard, soul destroying for Leesy as well. Just to take a deflection, and it was it was a painful night.
What happened with the with Herbie Emanuelson then? Because that was a dodgy signing, wasn't it? Like, he turned up, he had good pedigree, and then he made one appearance on the final game of the season. And in that game against Huddersfield, Pudel was blowing out of his arse, but it's not like he needed taken off. He needed someone else to be a left back, and that's when they brought that Benno on, and he murdered Pudel that 10 minutes, and that's when they got the goal. So why did Emanuelson does not get favours? Did he not train well, or what was it?
Again, ultimately, I really couldn't answer it in relation to, because Carlos wouldn't give me a reason why he wouldn't put certain players or make certain decisions on his substitutions. That was down to him. But listen, Irby was a great lad. He came in, and I've got to be honest, when he first came in, he was miles off fitness-wise.
Right.
So he took a while to get going for that side of things. And then in the few games that Carlos did see him, he obviously felt that he just was at a point in his career that probably was always going to be a second choice to Puda at the time. And at the time, let's be right, Daniel had been magnificent that season as well. So it was always going to be tough for Irby to get in. As you say, did he tire in that game? Of course he did. And he was blown a little bit. But I don't know, maybe we were starting to get to that point where was he starting to think about the penalty situation, and would we need more offensive players on the park and all this type of thing? So I don't know. Listen, managers live and die by their decisions, and unfortunately, listen, we were penalty kicks away for going to Wembley again, and that's how close it was, or a deflection for going to Wembley again. So it was a tough night.
Really,
we remember it well, Lee. We remember it well. Simon,
we all do, mate.
Simon, you're on mute. If I just wanted to politely remind you, but I believe you've got some more questions about the coaching and the managing.
Well, yeah, I was going to say to you, Lee, because obviously you presided over a time where, like you said, when you first joined, we were a mismatch of players, but we all had a common aim. Then obviously we started moving towards Carlos coming in, and there was this, all of a sudden there was this open checkbook. So then we had all these characters and these highly talented characters coming into the changing room. Obviously, you sitting back and seeing Fernando Forestieri in there, Ross Wallace, Lucas João, Marco Matthias. How difficult or easy was it to manage those different characters? Because obviously the second year of Carlos's tenure, we had the issue with Forestieri not travelling to Norwich due to wage demands. How did that affect the changing room? How did it affect the dynamics? Did the dynamics change a lot? I mean, you must have sat back from it and gone, blimey, this is a little bit different from when I first came.
Yeah, no. Listen, characters are characters, and I think it 9 times out of 10 a changing room runs itself. And if you get that, and that's basically what happened for the first season. The second season, was it down to wage demands, or was it down to agents pushing buttons and thinking that they can maybe get his client something better? For me, even going to Norwich at that time, I think it would have been a wrong choice for Fernando. He certainly made a wrong choice, a wrong decision on that opportunity to withdraw himself from the game going down to Norwich that day. Anyway, put it that way. So no, I think there was a talk, a good bid. Was it potentially Cardiff? I think had maybe talked about a big bid for Fernando at that time. About 9 million or something, and the chairman wanted to stand steadfast in relation to no, we keep our best players because we just missed out last year and we can go again this year hopefully. But I think Fernando made a wrong decision, but I don't think it was only his decision. I think his agent didn't help him, shall I say, and that did ruffle a few feathers. And unfortunately, I was one of them that had to basically. Carlos did move him out of training for a couple of weeks, but he actually. He gave me the enviable job of looking after Fernando for 2 weeks and basically doing one-to-one training sessions and working him hard and everything like that. So that wasn't easy, but I've got to admit, Fernando I think, realised the mistake he had made, and he never complained once. He worked really hard for that side of things, and eventually won the manager back over and got himself back into the team. But if you were to ask him if he regretted it, I would like to think he would say yes, but I really don't know, because he's a law unto himself at times, Fernando. But he was also probably a player with a talent that should have been playing in the Premier League, but he was playing in the Championship for a reason, and it was maybe that type of thing that was the reason behind it. So, listen, I think we were privileged to have a player of that ability in our football team. When he played and played the way he could, he was the best player in the Championship.
Okay, so I'm going to swerve Alman Abdi and talking about him. Because I think, I don't think many people knew what was going on with him. But what I wanted to talk about was your times managing the team. Talk to us about the 2 or 3 times you did it, the Burton game. Tell us it all, because we're having shitty sound issues here, and the more you talk, it sounds better.
Very good. So, the first time, obviously, Carlos moved, and the chairman asked me to tick it over for 2 or 3 games until he made a decision on what he was going to do. So obviously the first game was, we've not been on a great run of form, have we? So I just felt like it was at the time I knew I wasn't ready to take the job myself at the time. Okay, so so I knew it was only going to be short term.
Sorry, Lee, did you feel that the chairman was pulling on your personality, your popularity with the fans to try and galvanise it, or did you feel like you got there on merit somewhat?
No, I think I got there on merit somewhat, having done the piece with Stuart Gray and then being part of a relatively successful sort of coaching group with Carlos and things like that. So I think the chairman he also knows I had a good relationship with the fans, but I don't think that was the reason. I think he knew that I would do things right in the right way and decisions that I felt would be right for the football club. And we got off to a great start, obviously, down at Forest. We had a brilliant result, so it seemed easy to me. This managing lark was a toddler, wasn't it? Obviously, 2 days later we had to go down to Brentford, didn't we? And that was always going to be a tough one down there. Brentford were just at their point where they suddenly sprung from nowhere and were becoming a real sort of live wires of the club. You could really sense something was happening to that football club at the time. And we went down there. And let's be right, though, to be honest with you, we were only 1-0 down. We had about 20-odd minutes to go. And I thought, listen, we hadn't been much in the game. We had papered together. We had so many injuries. I think we had about 10 missing. Glenn Luvins had to play ill. So he was running on empty as well. And we were 1-0 down with 20 minutes to go. We were hanging on in the game. And I just thought, you know what, if we're going to lose, I'm going to lose having a go. So I just switched it to a 3-5-2 and tried to get an extra body up top and thought, let's have a go at it. As soon as we switched it, they scored. And then we're like, oh, God, that's really killed that sort of opportunity. And we ended up losing the game. And listen, they comfortably beat us on the day. We were, as I say, we were swimming to keep ourselves above water during that game. Just from the playing point of view, they were absolutely shattered. And then came the infamous one against Burton at home, which just everything fell apart. We lost a penalty within the first minute, but Joe Wellsmith saves it. We just couldn't get going. And I think the injuries and the fatigue that the group of players that were having to put out game after game after game, because we had very few opportunities to change it. They were all filling in. There was, as I say, Glenn had been ill at the Burton game, and I can't remember if he put himself out there in ill at the Brentford game. I can't remember if he even volunteered to go out again against Burton. I can't really remember. Danny Puro come on and made a mistake for I think it was the third or the fourth goal, but it was a game where it proved there was a lot of work needing done during that January window, so to speak. And then we had the FA Cup game up at Carlisle, which we drew. We should have won the game. We actually played all right during the game, but they got an equaliser. We brought them back home, and then we beat them in the replay. But I think Jos was at the game at Carlisle, but didn't take the reins until after that game. He got the enviable. I was gutted. I just wanted one more game, but he got the enviable game of taking a struggling Sheffield Wednesday team to Bramall Lane for his first game.
What a save as well from Adam Reach. Could have been a 1-0 win.
I know.
Remember that.
Cammy Dawson saved a penalty as well, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got a couple of quick fire questions here for you, Lee.
Yep.
Worst fashion sense apart from Lee Peacock?
Oh, you've just killed me.
Tell us about one of his worst outfits, because some of the
there's only
things he
one winner,
wears.
Lee Peacock. I swear to God, I met Lee Peacock about 6 years before he even joined him at Sheffield Wednesday. Magaluf, he'd go to Magaluf every year, and at Dunfermline, as a team, at the end of every season, we'd go to Magaluf for 3 or 4 nights just to enjoy the end of season type of thing. And Peaks would always be there. But he'd be in Magaluf, it'd be 31 degrees, and he'd walk up and down the strip in a fur coat. You know, one of those old, what's the old
Macklemore
fur coat that old car salesman would wear.
John Moxon.
Exactly, John, that
Yeah.
type of thing. In Magaluf, 31 degrees, and he's walking up and down the strip in this flipping thing with a vest on underneath. So, no, nobody would beat Peacock in relation to the worst dress sense ever. Nobody. I don't know. Sam Hutchison was up there, but nah, Lee Peacock all day long.
Okay, what have I got here? I've got best gifted footballer. I assume, given what you said earlier on, it's somewhere along the lines of Chris Brunt, right?
Yeah, that I played with.
Played with and coached. Yeah, which ones?
We were played with. Brunty would be up there, but Forestieri, definitely. And listen, I've only worked with 2 players that sometimes you've stood at the side of the training pitch and you've actually found yourself laughing because some of the stuff they do in training. And our current captain's like that. When he came into the team, he just used to do things in training. It was just like phenomenal. He just had such a vision to see passes, or it was as if he had eyes in the back of his head sometimes. And he deserves every credit he's got. He is, listen, the ultimate legends are your Hursts and your Waddles and your Sheridans and Carlton Palmers and people like that. Absolutely. But he deserves to be in that sort of status. He would have had loads of opportunity to leave the football club, especially when they got relegated. And I remember sitting down with him as a when they did get relegated and asking him about options, and he says, "Yeah, I've got options to go." I says, "Baz, you've got an opportunity." Honestly, I was some wee guy from Pennycoop that nobody'd ever heard of. Came down here, suddenly got a promotion back as a captain with Sheffield Wednesday, and now you hardly can go out in Sheffield without somebody wanting to buy you a drink. I says, "You've got an opportunity here in your career as a captain of this football club to return it back to the Championship, which it'll never be forgotten, me man." And I'm hoping it played half a part, and I'm sort of, you know what? Yeah, why not? Why not? And he stuck at it, and I was absolutely buzzing for him last year. I'm glad he sort of depicted my photo sitting there with the beers in the cup at the end of it as well, to be honest with you. That was
trying to steal all that limelight from you, Lee. All right, in the changing room.
He deserves all the limelight he gets.
In the changing room, who's got the worst music taste? Any era?
Oh wow! Hecky's up there. I know he's gone to the dark side, but Hecky's hopeless. He's got some of the worst music I've ever heard. Who was it? One of the boys liked all that rock stuff. Who was the boy that claiming he scored the goal at Hull that went through the legs, and definitely I flicked on it.
Giles Coke.
No, not Giles Coke. James
Quinn. James Quinn.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Worst ever. He reminded me of Gareth Ainsworth and all that kind of stuff. You know, that rock stuff. No. Yeah, Quinny definitely the worst during my playing spell, definitely.
Okay. And then I've got one here from James Cockins. He's gone with, have you ever tried to arrange a pre-season friendly between Ayr and Wednesday?
Yeah, tried to get one last season. Just didn't work out. They were going away. Thought we were going to have one this season. Darren was talking about it, but it would have been a sort of 23-stroke reserve type of team that would have come up, unfortunately. Would love to get them up. Tell you what, I wish I had £1 for every Sheffield Wednesday fan that's been an Ayr United game since I've been up here.
Yeah.
There's been loads come up. And to be honest, Ayr United had been brilliant. They did say anybody that can show a Sheffield Wednesday season ticket will get a free ticket to get into the game. So there's been loads that have come up and really enjoyed it. So it's been great to see. Don't get me wrong, our rivals wear blue and white stripes, Kilmarnock. So some of the looks they get when they walk into the Ayr United supporters bar in blue and white stripes, there has to be a double take and just double check the badge that's on the shirt.
Fair enough. And then last one is Mr. Bullen. I always thought that Stuart Gray should have given a chance to take the team forward. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh no, I've always felt that Stewart deserved an opportunity. He gave me my opportunity in the first place, and I think he did deserve the opportunity. I thought he did an absolutely amazing job. One, with the sort of budget he was working under at the time, but two, and probably one of the biggest things for me was the pitch was an absolute joke at the time. It was just before Mr. Chansiri had come in, and the pitch was like Blackpool Beach. Some of the stuff that you had to try and play on the pitch was ridiculous. So what Stuart Gray did there was absolutely unbelievable. Listen, Carlos is one of the best coaches I've worked under. He was phenomenal. But Stuart, in my opinion, deserved that opportunity after the job that he had done to stabilise the club before Carlos did come in. He's such a gentleman, such a good guy. He would have played different tactics tactically if he had a decent surface to play on and probably had one or two better players to work with, and that's no disrespect to the group that he had at the time in comparison to the group that Carlos was able to put together. So, no, he was absolutely phenomenal as such.
Okay, as such. Okay, this is actually the last one. This one's from our very own John. Ask Lee what it's like to be immortalised in the dream scene painting alongside those Sheffield Wednesday greats.
I'm a wee bit embarrassed about it because when you see some of the pictures up there, it's amazing, and it's a great. I've got it's I don't know. It's weird for me. It's weird for me.
Sorry, Lee. My apologies. If you don't, sorry, Lee. If you don't mind starting again. I had a bit of audio issue there, my friend. I'm sorry. I don't know if the internet's made it up into Scotland and you want to give the hamster a kick. But I feel like I'm losing you a little bit. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? That's frustrating. Blair, Simon, I'll just kick Lee out just while he comes back on in a second if I can see him moving in the bottom. Is there anything you guys want to add before I wrap this up?
Not particularly, no.
I just wonder if he feels, obviously his time as caretaker manager, whether or not he feels like he never got a full grasp of being given the job. Because he never got the jobs and had to move away.
I think you might be right. Let me see if we can ask him. Is he still there? Lee, are you still with us? No, we've timed out. We've timed out. Lee, if you can hear us, if you can see us, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I must admit, I was fangirling a little bit. Between yourself and Roland Nilsson and Pamela Anderson, that's took up the wall space when I was a kid. So if you can hear us, thanks a lot for joining us. Right, so listen, that's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks a lot for joining us this evening. Coming up later on this evening in about 5 minutes' time, we've got to film another podcast, so that's what we're going to do. And I hope you enjoyed that. My apologies about the audio issues. Again, internet in Scotland. What can you do? Thanks a lot. See you later.